Okay, so here we are, Ghostbusters 2016. Is it a reboot, a remake? Well, kind of put it into the remake category, but I'll elaborate on that further. There might be some thing that maybe moves it more into reboot territory. Uh, that being said, obviously, yes, I know everyone's been talking about this. I wanted to give it its fair shot. I saw the movie, and, these are basically my thoughts. Um, Early on, there were some things that surprised me. Kristen Wiig's character of Erin Gilbert, uh, and let's see, Melissa McCarthy's character of Abby Yates. I think they were sort of switched around than what the marketing would seem to indicate. A lot of the marketing, I think, put Melissa McCarthy as the real main character of the piece, and she's not. Kristen Wiig is. In fact, I would say if there was an equivalent, Kristen Wiig's character is more of the skeptic like Peter Venkman is in the original. Melissa McCarthy's more of a kind of combination Ray Stantz, Egon Spengler. I'd probably say more Ray Stantz. Kate McKinnon's character of Gillian Holtzman is definitely way more Egon. And, Leslie Jones's Patty Tolan is obviously Winston. Yeah. And I don't just mean that because she's black, okay? Obviously she's meant to be more the blue-collar, every-person character who's not familiar with the world of ghosts as much as the other Ghostbusters. And, of course, rounding out the main cast, really, we have Chris Hemsworth as Kevin, the dunder-headed, and I do mean dunder-headed, receptionist for the group. There's a lot of weird scenes with him. I mean, just how stupid he is. He does not know how to work the phone properly. He wears glasses, but there's no glasses in the frames because they were always getting dirty, so he just took them out, not understanding that he actually, needed them to see. And he's not exactly a love interest for the Kristen Wiig character so much, but she is obviously the one who's really into him, and the other ones are like, whatever, okay. But, like I said, he doesn't know how to answer the phone properly. It's like they have a phone that's in an aquarium, and he's like, guys, the phone's ready. Well, it's in the aquarium. It's like, well, that's not the phone on the desk. Oh. And then he's like, hello. And he hangs up. Yeah, there's that. Sorry. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in the film. Like I said, though, kind of the background in this, for the movie, not in the or of the story in the movie, is that Abby and Erin collaborated on a book. Yeah, just a sec here. Yes, I take notes. Erin and Abby collaborated on a ghost book, and kind of most of the way through writing it, Erin, Kristen Wiig's character, basically abandoned the project. It got published with her name on it anyway, and now it's kind of come back to bite her a little bit because it could be affecting her ability to get tenure as a professor at Clemson. Not Clemson, Columbia. Clemson. Where the hell did I get that from? Anyway, as she's preparing to teach a class, she's approached by this guy, Ed Begley Jr., who tells her he curates a historic mansion where all these murders took place that he thinks is haunted, and that's where the opening scene is. There's an opening haunting scene, eerily reminiscent of the library scene from the first movie, and he comes to Erin. Sorry, yeah, he comes to Erin because she co-wrote this book, and Erin's trying like, no, I didn't write that. I don't know what you're talking about, and she's just super embarrassed because it's available on Amazon. She's like, oh God, this is going to cost me everything. Surprise, it winds up costing her everything. So she goes to Abby, who's teaching at this kind of fly-by-night for-profit school. It's not highly regarded. It's the Higgins. I can't remember if it's Higgins College of Science or Higgins School of Science or something. And her field is so underfunded that they kind of forgot that she was there. And again, it's like this really trashy fly-by-night school. So but she works with the Kate McKinnon character, Jillian Holtzman, and they're working on, they developed the PKE meter and stuff like that. And so they're trying to get her I'm sorry, I get a little all over the place. Okay, anyway, eventually the three wind up going to the Haunted Mansion, and they meet up with this guy who was giving the tours of the place, and he's like, oh, this character died. I don't know what you're talking about. Then everybody do yourself. Well, then who's he? Oh, that's his son. Yeah, there's a few kind of cheap jokes. But they managed to video that. You get the first scene. You see the trailer where the ghost spews the ectoplasm all over Kristen Wiig, and they get the video. They actually get video of it. And they put it on YouTube, and unfortunately, it cost Kristen Wiig her job. And then they go to the Higgins people for more funding, and it's like, oh, we should have discontinued that the whole time. Yeah, turns out the dean, who just recently replaced the other dean who was sent to prison, is a total jerk, and he basically fires them, so they steal all his stuff and leave the school. Excuse me. Oh, God. And there's a brief, after that, there's a very brief reference to a sort of rival ghost hunters, haunted places in the world type show called Ghost Jumpers, and they sort of mock it, but that doesn't really seem to go much anywhere after that. But this does kind of give the trio the idea to go into business for themselves. They start looking around, they find the firehouse from Ghostbusters, obviously, and they're, oh, this is so cool, this is so cool. It's like, oh, it's too expensive. So they have to move in above the Chinese restaurant that Abby always orders from. And that's kind of how that goes. I talked a bit about Kevin already. And the logo is inspired by a graffiti artist because Patty comes to them because she sees the ghosts down in the subway. And it turns out there's this guy named Rowan who is setting up all of these sort of special devices around New York to amplify the spectral energy because he's trying to create a portal to bring a whole bunch of ghosts here, and he'll take over and run them all. And like I said, this leads them down into the subway where they see the guy who says he saw a ghost. He's like, oh, it'd be like this. And he's graffiti tagging a wall, and that's where they get the idea for the logo. And then they go down into the subway, and they see the ghost again, and they have this prototype proton pack that's a little too bulky because it actually has this whole separate console on a wheel. So it actually shows some general evolution. And that, I mean, that is kind of cool that you actually see them sort of progressing as they get everything. Unlike, say, in the first movie, or the original Ghostbusters, where, you know, it's like they immediately got everything. It was all fire. That being said, the pacing of this movie is almost still too fast, even though it's 2 hours long. They had time to fill in those parts, but then there's other parts where it's like, jump ahead, jump ahead, jump ahead. And it's like, you could have maybe dealt a little bit more on the development stuff there and filled in a bit more time. Okay, let's see. Anyway, they have another encounter with a ghost. Again, this gets videotaped. Again, this gets up on YouTube. They actually make the news this time, and the news brings on Dr. Heiss, who's played by Bill Murray. And no, it's not Peter Venkman. And there are also a couple other cameos. There's Dan Aykroyd, who's a cab driver. I don't know whether he's the infamous ghost cab driver or not, because he seems to know a lot about ghosts when the big battle starts happening and the portal's opened up. I'll get to that. And he's like, yeah, you know, these are just level 5, you know, plasma spirits. Nothing to worry about. Okay, so I always thought it was going to be applied that he was going to then turn into a ghost, but no, that didn't happen. After that, and then, Ernie Hudson is Patty's uncle, who they get the hearse from that they turn into Ecto-1. You know, they go, the first ghost capture is at the heavy metal concert, and one of the metalheads, I don't know which one, they use just as metalhead, is Harold Ramis' son. So that's kind of your other cameo Well, there's one more, actually. We'll get to that, though. Like I said, they capture a ghost. It's at this point that the ghost debunker, Bill Murray, shows up again to, again, confront them on this. They say, oh, we have the ghost. Let me show you. They open up the trap. The ghost springs out. It knocks him through a window and kills him. Yeah, and I could see where that's really going to tick people off, that a lot of that stuff started to happen. But, again, I think for the most part, the real strength in this was a lot of the chemistry between the characters. Particularly, obviously, you see a lot of Kate McKinnon's Gillian Holtzman and Patty Tolan by Leslie Jones. Their characters, you see a lot in the trailers. They're really the scene stealers in this. McCarthy's okay. She's not spectacular. Kristen Wiig was actually pretty good. I'm not the biggest Kristen Wiig fan, but she was okay for the most part. Although there's a few too many scenes of her fawning over Chris Hemsworth. Anyway, they capture the ghost, the heavy metal concert, like I said. Then they show the Bill Murray character, and this is enough to attract the attention of the local government and the federal government. And basically, the local government doesn't want this going out because it's going to cause a lot of panic, and they basically say, you can't operate as a business, but you can study, you can study and you can tell us, and we'll try to keep it in check. And it's kind of through this, they sort of imply that they said, there have been others before you. Now, I don't know if that, they make reference to, like, the Tunguska disaster and the Roswell incident and all that stuff. So, it's possible they were referring to, like, an earlier incarnation of the Ghostbusters. Whether that's the one from the original Ghostbusters movie, I can't say. But I did think they were maybe planting the seed where, there could be other Ghostbusters groups out there. Anyway, eventually they managed to track down Rowan. The reason they know who Rowan is because he kind of made a passing reference to Patty earlier about the fourth cataclysm coming. And they clue into him, and they go down, and it's in this hotel. And he's working out of the basement of this hotel, and he's got the portal machine generator set up. And they realize, oh, wow, we could use this and maybe make it to a containment field. And that's, obviously, yes, at the end of the film, they reverse engineer that into the containment unit. And that leads to the Sigourney Weaver cameo, which is in the end credits scene. The Sigourney Weaver cameo in the end credits scene. And it turns out that Sigourney Weaver is the mentor of the Gillian Holtzman Kate McKinnon's character of Gillian Holtzman. They confront Rowan. Rowan kind of like, oh, well, I'll show you. And he basically grabs it and he sacrifices himself. And it looks like it somehow shuts down the portal as well. But basically, he was intentionally trying to sacrifice himself because he can now, as a ghost, travel through the pipe. And that leads to the whole possessing Melissa McCarthy. And then he possesses Chris Hemsworth character, Kevin. And he goes back to the hotel. And he restarts the portal, and it opens up, and all the ghosts start pouring through. And there are ghosts that possess a bunch of Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloons, including a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So yeah, Marshmallow Man is in this as a Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloon. And then Slimer shows up. They show him tearing up this hot dog stand. He comes out of it. He actually gains control of Ecto-1, and they start trying to blast him, and it's like, and Holtzman goes, no, don't blast him. There's this nuclear accelerator on top of the car to power the proton packs. We can't fire at that, or it'll blow up half of New York City. Yeah, in other words, they're replacing the cross the streams bit. And so Slimer drives off in Ecto-1, and then he comes back, and someone has like a wife and no kids, really, a bunch of hangers on. Yeah, so yes, and then there's a Mrs. Slimer on top of that. And no doubt that's probably angered a lot of other people seeing this movie. And not so much me. It was weird, but again, for the most part, everything's there. Eventually they confront the villain, Rowan. He gives up possessing Kevin. He then takes the form of the Ghostbusters logo and grows to giant heights. But eventually what they figure out is Ecto-1 returns again with Slimer and Mrs. Slimer driving the car. And they clue in that, wait, maybe we could fire at that nuclear accelerator on top of the car. Like I said, it's the new Cross the Memes. And if we can get it close enough to the portal, as it explodes, it'll turn the portal into a giant ghost trap. And it basically goes off without a hitch. The one hitch being, at the end, Abby, Melissa McCarthy's character, is grabbed by Rowan as he's sucked in, and Aaron goes after it, ties a cable around her waist, jumps in after Abby, saves them, and as they're pulled out, somehow all their hair turns white. Though during the end credit sequence, they dye it back. So yeah, the white hair thing goes nowhere really. They're hailed as heroes for the most part, though again, the government pretty much covers it up. Like, they're not going to say they weren't frauds, but they're going to try to isolate this, and basically they're going to be funded by the New York City government to continue studying this. Then they build the containment unit. They reverse engineer the containment unit. I already mentioned the Sigourney Weaver cameo. Then the Ernie Hudson cameo comes just after that because he's angry about what happened to his hearse. And also, because the New York City government is funding them, they now get they get to use the firehouse. And then there's one last end credit teaser. Patty is listening to an EVP machine. There was a bit with the EVP machine earlier, but that's not important. She's listening, and she puts her head down, falls down, and goes, guys, do you know what Zool means? They're like, and that's kind of it. So obviously they're planting seeds for the possible sequel. Okay, so overall thoughts. Like I said, I didn't really hate this that much. I did have some problems. The pacing, like I said before, was a little off. It seemed like parts that maybe needed to be slowed down were a little too fast, and the parts that were a little too needed to be sped up just a bit were a little too slow. Like I said, I like the idea that you actually saw early stages of the proton pack and the PKE meter and all that stuff. You know, it wasn't like in the first movie where everything was like firing on all cylinders. They had enough money to do everything they needed right off the bat. And like I said, Kristen Wiig, she was better than I thought she was going to be. The one drawback is there's a lot of scenes of her sort of fawning over Kevin, like, oh yes, yeah, and then it's like, also, part of it is she's supposed to be the skeptical character, but then it's revealed that she'd actually seen a ghost when she was 8 years old, and she had spent a long time in therapy, and she met up with Melissa McCarthy's character, when they were in high school, and they started connecting, and that's where they got the idea to do the ghost book. But then she just turned, and it's like, well, why did she give up so easily? That didn't make any sense. And Abby Yates, Melissa McCarthy's character, likewise, not terrible, but I definitely thought she was probably the weakest of the group. Jillian Holtzman, Kate McKinnon, scene stealer. Same thing with Leslie Jones, Patty Tolan. Very much the scene stealers of this. And they made up for a lot of the deficiencies, I think. Excuse me, God. Oh, what happened to my throat there? Sorry. And like I said, it just seems a lot of the people who are complaining about this were the people who were complaining about it going in. I think the only guy I know whose opinion was maybe turned around a little bit was Movie Bob. I read some of his tweets on the thing. I know Angry Joe's eviscerated it. I know Phalis has eviscerated it. I haven't seen Matthew Buck's review. I've not seen Black Nerd Comedy's review. But again, it seemed like those people were all complaining going into this, at which point, then don't see the movie. If you don't want to see the movie, you don't have to see the movie. Unless you were paid to on Patreon or something. Sorry. Like I said, for the most part, I liked it. There were some deficiencies, and I knew there were things that were going to piss people off. didn't piss me off that much. But there were some deficiencies in it. But overall, I am going to give this a B. I really did enjoy this film. Okay, now that that's over with, trailers. Yeah, the trailers. Let's see. I actually got to the theater a little late, so I may have missed a trailer. I'm not entirely sure. I came at the tail end of one trailer, and that was the Ben-Hur remake. I didn't see much of it, so I can't really say whether or not it was good. See the original if you ever get a chance to. It runs on Turner Classic Movies all the time. The next one was Nerve. That's the one about the young woman who starts playing this online game where people give her directions online. Unknown people give her directions online, like, "Oh, go in, try this dress. You know, make out with a guy, make out with a random stranger for 5 seconds." Excuse me. And then it turns out, like, no, the game is too real. People have been dying playing this game. And she's beginning, like, this massive following because she's doing all this stuff, and yeah. It looks very direct-to-video, to be honest. After that, the Mechanic sequel, Mechanic Resurrection, you know, looked okay. Again, probably a wait till DVD on that one. Sausage Party, the R-rated animated comedy about food in the grocery store, which gives me nightmares because I thought they remade Food Fight for some reason. And if you don't know what Food Fight is, consider yourself fortunate that you don't know what Food Fight is. After that, Jason Bourne. To be honest, I saw the first Bourne Identity, and I haven't seen any of the sequels, even though I own the third one. I always say, well, you know, I'll buy the other two at some point. I'll get the other two at some point, and I didn't see the one with Jeremy Renner at all either. You know, I'm sure if you like those other movies, you'll probably like this one. And Suicide Squad again. Yeah. So, obviously, next video is going to be another movie review. It'll be Star Trek Beyond. Then it'll be the next episode of the Random Trade Review on Queen Bee. I haven't started scripting it yet, but there's not much to that. There's not a lot of background stuff, so they're not going to have a lot of on-camera portions, so it shouldn't be too hard to write. And after that, it's the WWE Battleground recap and review. See you all next time.